Views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
With what we are attracting for candidates to serve in those seats, because nobody wants that job,
right,
then we should take a look at a new system.
Tonight on Politics Now, reforming the school board. The man who formerly oversaw efforts to reorganize tells us the faults he sees in the system. Plus,
you know what I'm concerned about is there's too much name calling going on.
Former Nevada senators and governors get together to teach the next generation of public servants the advice they had about today's political climate.
After you go through an experience like that, you make a promise to yourself that you will never be a victim again.
Republican congressional candidate Lisa Sutton talks to us about gun legislation, health care, and more.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now with Steve Sebelius.
Well, the ink is finally drying on a new contract for Clark County teachers. Thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Sebelius. The CCSD Board of Trustees voted unanimously to approve the contract between the school district and the teachers union. The agreement focuses on 4 key issues: a salary increase, step increases, increased contributions to health care premiums, and extra pay for advanced education. Now that it's been approved, teachers will get back pay. Also this week, the union representing support employees in the district reached a tentative agreement on their new contract with the district. Tom Skanke was the man in charge of the school district reorganization effort back in 2017. He also headed the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance. We asked for his insight into the problems the district is facing now. And found, in fact, that a lot of companies that didn't want to move to Nevada, the reason they gave was the education system.
Exactly, Steve. I was sitting in my office one day with a company from Korea. We had been trying to attract them here. And the gentleman that came in held up the Las Vegas Review-Journal headline that said, Nevada 49th in the nation.
Oops, sorry about that.
Right, exactly. And I didn't have an answer for him when he said, why? Why should I move my company here when you're 49th?
Because it's not only the educated workforce, but it's the employees of his company who have children who need to send them to schools.
Yeah, so, you know, I've said for years, and my Republican friends and people in the business community are going to hate what I'm going to say next, but, you know, if Nevada's tax structure was so great, and if that's why companies relocated, then why isn't every Fortune 50 company in the country and in the world doing business in Nevada?
People can be excused for being cynical, right? To say, well, you found it, it was there all along. Why did we have to go through this?
Yeah, so it's the shell game, right? And if you look at the trustees, they primarily have 3 responsibilities. They hire and fire the superintendent.
Yeah.
They pass a budget, which they've seen probably maybe 8, 12 hours if they're lucky before, that's prepared for by the staff. Because the trustees can't talk to each other under the Attorney General's letter from the mid-90s that says you can't talk to each other, which, by the way, they are the only governing board that has that restriction on them. When we were trying to do the reorganization, which should have been successful, by the way, I think it was well thought out. There was a lot of support in the community for that. We fought the trustees every day.
It sounds like the trustees are probably where you would start if you wanted to reform the system.
Yeah, so if you look back, so I've been in Las Vegas since Dr. Cram was the superintendent. And we always do this to the superintendent. When we were doing the reorganization, I can't tell you how many people in the community said, you've got to make a recommendation to fire the superintendent. Well, 1, we weren't given that authority. 2, that's the trustee's job. 3, I don't think it is the superintendent 80% of the time. Superintendent is given a budget amount from the legislature, and the superintendent, he or she works for the trustees. And in my opinion, there needs to be a reorganization of how those trustees serve and what their roles and responsibilities are. Think about the Gaming Commission. If the trustees were allowed to be appointed for just 6 years, okay? The culture at the school district is rumor and innuendo and gossip. The culture is if no one likes what someone else is saying, they start texting legislators and the trustees because someone was offended. And at the end of the day, that shouldn't be the culture, Steve. The culture should be, this is a priority for our community.
Well, you can watch the rest of that interview, including Skanky's ideas on how he would reform the Board of Trustees. That's on our website at 8newsnow.com. Well, several former governors and senators are shaping the next generation of public servants. It's part of a new program at UNLV's Boyd Law School, moderated by Governor Brian Sandoval. Former governor, we should say, Brian Sandoval. 8 News Now reporter Bianca Holman was there. She filed this report about that conversation.
It was definitely a gathering of influential Nevada leaders. We heard personal stories of challenges while in office, and also attendees got a chance to question their thought process. This is part of the UNLV Law and Leadership Program. Governor Brian Sandoval and the law school wants to encourage future lawyers to take on public service roles. The program is a time for national and state lawmakers to discuss leadership choices and their impact. Former governors Richard Bryan, Bob Miller, and Robert List talked about tough times in office and the need for collaboration. They discussed a big topic, education, as well as the Clark County school budget and teacher union contract.
I think one of the problems that we've had in Clark County is it is such a massive organization. You know, it's the 5th largest school district in America, and it's tough to govern that wide of a scale, of scope of education. I mean, hundreds of thousands of students, and it is just almost more than one single district can do.
And education is a complex issue, and I think individually you've seen each governor has approached it in different fashions and tried to put in some nuance that helps in the quality of education. With me, it was class size reduction.
They also mentioned the term limits and how institutional knowledge is crucial in the legislature, saying it takes time to understand how to get things done and be effective while in office. It was a very insightful event with a diverse audience. This is the first of several more programs to come. Bianca Holman, 8 News Now.
Well, former Governor Sandoval earned a reputation in his long career in Nevada for working across the aisle with Democrats. So I asked him about getting things done in a hyper-polarized climate like the one we have today. It seems like in Washington, Senator Heller said it, there's a bill, it's a good bill, it's a bill somebody would ordinarily want to vote for, but the wrong person's name is on it, the wrong party's name is on it, and therefore they don't want to support that legislation simply for that reason. How do you overcome that? Somebody who knows what the right thing is to do but can't do it or chooses not to do it just because of partisanship.
Well, I mean, that's something that has to change. I mean, a good bill is a good bill, and it has to come down and remind people while they're there, why they're there. And that's for their constituents. And what's in the best interests of their constituents. It should be irrelevant whose name is on a bill, if there's a personality involved. If it's something that can help people and you agree with, and you should support it.
You didn't take the bait when they tried to lure you into the whole Donald Trump question. In many ways, your entire career has sort of been a repudiation of that style of politics, the denigration, the narcissism that we see so often. Senator Reid and Senator Bryan seem to suggest that Donald Trump had fundamentally changed the country and had ruined the Republican brand. You're a Republican. Do you think that's the case? Are you worried about the brand of your party being ruined by Donald Trump?
Well, what I'm concerned about is the extremism. I think we've got to get more toward the middle, and what we just talked about, working together for common decisions that benefit the people. Governor Gregoire talked about that. The former governors talked about that. What is a good idea shouldn't matter whether it's Republican or Democrat or whoever the individual is. So I'm someone who didn't support the president. I supported John Kasich during the election for president. We can all hope that things will change, and that we've got an election coming up, and the people are going to have their opportunity to speak.
Well, among Governor Sandoval's career highlights, he's the first person to defeat an incumbent governor in his own party's primary. And of the 93 vetoes he issued in 2 terms and 4 sessions of the legislature, not a single one was overturned. Also, he told me Donald Trump never gave him a diminutive nickname. We'll put the whole interview with Governor Sandoval up on our website at 8newsnow.com. Look for the political news under the News tab. Well, up next, the challenges to Congressman Horsford.
I think, he's flip-flopped a bit in relation to health care.
Republican candidate for Congressional District 4, Lisa Song Sutton, sits down with us to talk about the issue.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
The Republican field against Congressman Stephen Horsford is starting to fill out. The latest to jump into the race is Lisa Song Sutton. She's a former Miss Nevada United States. She owns Sin City Cupcakes and the clothing store Liquid and Lace, along with having a law degree from the University of Miami. She talked with me about why she's running for office. Tell us why Congress and why now?
Politics was never in the plan for me, but after seeing how much need was in the community and hearing from voters, hearing from constituents that they didn't feel like they were being served by the current representative, I felt like that I had to step up.
Did your experience as a businesswoman contribute to that? Did you have experiences in that role that you said something's, interacting with government, that, something's wrong here, I want to fix this?
Absolutely. As a small business owner here in Nevada, one of the reasons why I started business here is because Nevada is so business friendly. And seeing the regulations that have come down from the state, from federal, it's crushing to small businesses, and that's something that we've experienced on a very personal level within our businesses. Seeing the high cost of healthcare, for example, our premiums have doubled for the staff that we offer healthcare to, and this is not because their health status has changed.
What do you think about that? Would you support a universal background check bill?
I think gun reform is very convoluted and very complicated, and unfortunately there's not going to be just one type of ban or one type of background check that's going to resolve and mitigate these awful atrocities that we've seen in recent times. Coming from a military family myself, my father's a Vietnam veteran, and so I grew up with firearm responsibility and understanding firearm safety. And for me, especially as a woman, I understand the need for self-defense, and I understand that a firearm is the quickest, most efficient way to equalize a dangerous situation. I've had 2 stalkers in my life, one of which broke into my townhouse that I lived in college, and I did what you're supposed to do, which is call the police. And after you go through an experience like that, you make a promise to yourself that you will never be a victim again. They never caught him, they lifted fingerprints, but he wasn't in the system. So if there's ever a chance that I'm attacked in my home again, sorry, they're getting a 45 to the face.
If you were to vote in Congress now, you'd be presented that bill, you wouldn't vote yes on it, it sounds like.
Not at this time.
The deficit under both Republican presidents and Democratic presidents has increased. It is huge now. The national debt is even huger. What do you think ought to be done about that? How do we stop the spending without affecting programs that will impact real people?
I think the way to curtail spending is to really examine where the funds are going, how they're being used, and where are some areas that the cost can be reduced without significantly impacting or affecting programs that we already have in place. It's ballooning, millions by the hour. And for me, I'm 34 years old. I plan to have family one day. That's in my future. And we really are mortgaging the future of our future generations because we're not keeping an eye on the budget now and we're not curtailing spending now.
You mentioned Congressman Horsford at the beginning, and some of the constituents that have been talking to you that said they didn't feel like they were well represented. Is there a particular vote or a particular issue that he's taken a stand on that you just absolutely disagree with and that you would have a completely different view on?
I think, he's flip-flopped a bit in relation to health care and whether he supports Medicare for all or whether he doesn't, and now it's coming back to, now he's open to, some different ideas. I think what we're hearing from the voters especially is that they want representation that's actually engaged in the community, that's listening to them, and that they feel like they're actually represented. Many voters that we've talked to just said they haven't seen him, and that they feel like by not being engaged in the community, how can you possibly know what we as the voters and we as the constituency need and want from you?
Well, I also asked about a host of other topics, including immigration, Asian American Pacific Islander representation in Congress, or the lack thereof, and her involvement with the Republican Party. You can watch that full interview on our website at 8newsnow.com. Other Republican candidates in the race include former Assemblyman Jim Marchant. You can also see his interview on our website as well. Well, some Democrats going on the attack.
You said they would have to buy in.
Have to buy in. If she qualifies for Medicaid,
are you forgetting what you said 2 minutes ago?
Be in for it.
The highlights and big topics from last night's Democratic presidential debate. And Nevada Republicans are making their 2020 decision right now. How the party plans to avoid a contested caucus entirely. That's next. This is On the Trail, where we update you on what some of the 2020 candidates are doing. The leading 10 Democratic presidential candidates shared the stage for the first time and clashed over health care coverage and how to pay for it. CBS's Natalie Brand was in Houston, where the presidential hopefuls were looking for a way to stand out from the crowd.
Voters tuned into the third Democratic debate, which did little to shake up the field.
It's still really early in the season, so it's good to hear from everybody and then kind of be able to narrow down my choice from there.
With the very first question, candidates clashed over Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren's Medicare for All plan.
Medicare for All is the most cost-effective approach.
How do we pay for it? We pay for it. Those at the very top, the richest individuals and the biggest corporations, are going to pay more.
But moderates, including former Vice President Joe Biden, questioned the cost.
They're going to give back that money to the employee?
Matter of fact, they will.
Well, let me tell you something. For a socialist, you got a lot more confidence in corporate America than I do.
As the frontrunner, Biden faced a challenge from former Housing Secretary Julian Castro, who's trying to improve his standing in the polls. But the moment drew a gasp from the crowd.
You said they would have to buy in.
Have to buy in. If she qualifies for Medicaid,
are you forgetting what you said 2 minutes ago?
Be in for it.
Afterward, Castro insisted it was a difference of policy, not an attack on Biden's age.
I stuck to policy tonight. I talked about the difference between my health care plan and Vice President Biden's plan.
While some said Castro went too far, fellow Texan Beto O'Rourke drew praise from fellow candidates for focusing on gun violence after the massacre in his hometown of El Paso.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
Democrats will debate again next month in Ohio. And Natalie Brand, CBS News, Houston.
Well, Nevada Republican Party Chairman Michael McDonald sent out a statement about the debate saying, quote, Nevadans are finally prospering, yet each and every one of these candidates would undo all of our progress and return to the high unemployment and stagnant wages we saw during the Obama-Biden administration. Worse yet, he continued, they are determined to make our communities less safe by opening up our borders to any and everyone that wants to enter, unquote. Well, McDonald will keep his title as chairman for the state Republican Party for another 2 years through the 2020 election. The party also approved a resolution that will allow the Central Committee to vote to bind the delegates to President Trump before the February caucus. Those caucus meetings will still take place, but only to select delegates to the county conventions. That's the first step on the road to attending the national convention next summer. And Democratic presidential candidate Mayor Pete Buttigieg opened his first office right here in Las Vegas. It's on Charleston between Eastern and Maryland Parkway. His campaign kicked off the opening on Thursday with a debate watch party. His supporters were probably happy. He had a pretty good night on Thursday. The latest CBS Battleground Tracker poll of Nevada Democratic caucus goers has a new leader right here in the Silver State. The poll has Bernie Sanders slightly ahead of Joe Biden at 29 to 27%. They're followed by Elizabeth Warren at 18% and Kamala Harris at 6%. The same poll asked caucus goers to list any of the candidates they'd consider supporting. Warren led that question, followed by Sanders and Biden. All three got more than 50% support on that second question. Well, up next, remembering 9/11. We'll show you how Las Vegans are remembering the lives lost 18 years ago. That's next.
You're watching Politics Now.
This week, local first responders honored those who lost their lives in the September 11th attacks with the tradition of tolling bells. Las Vegas Fire and Rescue led the ceremony just after 6:50 a.m., the approximate time here on the West Coast that the first World Trade Center tower went down 18 years ago. Over at Palo Verde High School, students and staff remembered Barbara Edwards. She was a teacher at the school and died in the terror attacks. Edwards was on American Airlines Flight 77 when it was flown into the Pentagon. The 58-year-old was returning to Las Vegas from a trip to the East Coast.
She's still my best friend. She's always in my heart.
Those who knew Edwards say she was outgoing and funny. As a French and German language teacher here, she was an advocate for foreign travel. Well, in the path of the wall, residents of a retirement community in South Texas are worried that President Trump's border wall is going to slice right through their backyards. The residents, all older than 55 years old, met with border officials to share their concerns. You'll find that story right now at borderreport.com. Read about the picturesque and well-manicured backyards that lead to pools, ponds, and golf courses, and why residents say the wall will change their way of life. And in What to Watch, Bernie Sanders will be back in Las Vegas this weekend, and he has an event in just a few hours. He's holding a Climate and College for All rally at the Cambridge Recreation Center at 5:30 p.m. That's open to the public. The latest CBS YouGov poll showed Sanders with a slight lead in Nevada. It's Saturday at the Cambridge Recreation Center at 5:30 p.m. That's probably not surprising. Bernie Sanders has a big following here in Las Vegas from his 2016 run for the presidency, where he basically split the state evenly with Hillary Clinton. She got a few more delegates, but he came up pretty close. Well, that's our show for this week. As always, thank you very much for watching Politics Now. If you have questions about politics, state, local, or national, or have a suggestion for something you'd like to see here on the show, you can email me. My address is sSebelius@8newsnow.com. You can stay up to date and on air and watch Politics Now at 4:30 every Saturday. Up next, stay tuned for your local news with Sasha Loftus right here on 8 News Now.